What up, what up, what up? This is G here, and coming at you with the video for area of a circle. So, if you've not watched the video for circumference of a circle yet, you need to watch that first. You need to understand how to find the circumference first and parts of a circle in order to be able to do the area, just because that'll be a lot of useful information for this particular video. Okay? All right, guys. So, area of a circle. So what we were talking about circumference when we talked, as I just mentioned, when we talked about circumference of a circle, circumference is the distance around a circle. Okay, so circumference is the distance around. It's almost like the perimeter. Area is how much space the circle itself takes up. So it's when we're filling in that circle. Okay, so area is how much it takes up when we fill it in. For a circle, here is your formula in order to find the area of a circle. So this A obviously stands for area. So to find the area of a circle, we use pi again, but now we only can use our radius. And so the formula is pi r squared. Notice this is an exponent. Okay, this is an exponent. This is radius to the power of 2. That is very, very, very important. We'll talk about why when we actually solve our first problem. So with a circle, you have to have the radius. You cannot use the diameter. So if you're given the diameter, you must figure out what the radius is first and plug that into your formula. So let's look at this one. Here I have a circle, and the circle has a radius of 4 centimeters. So what I need to do is I need to take this radius and plug it into my formula. Okay, now the cool thing is I'm already given the radius. I'm not given the diameter, so I don't have to worry about anything. Okay, so all I need to do is I need to plug in my radius into my formula, and then I need to solve. So I know area equals pi times my radius, and my radius is squared. So I plugged in my 4 for the r into the formula. And I put in parentheses just so I can see what's going on. You don't have to have it in parentheses, but to me it just shows exactly what I substituted in. So here's the big thing though, is if we remember PEMDAS, order of operations, okay? Order of operations, this E stands for exponents. So exponents comes before multiplication in order of operations, which means we have to square our radius before we multiply by pi. So we have to square the radius first. So when I'm solving this, even though it says pi times 4, I'm not multiplying pi by 4. I'm multiplying by pi by whatever 4 squared is. So I need to do this piece first because I have to do my exponents first. Another thing we need to remember is when that power of 2, this is not 4 times 2. Exponents is when you multiply the number by itself. So really, this is just 4 times 4, which is 16. So when I simplify 4 squared, I get 16. So my area equals 16 times pi. Okay. Now, a couple things. Sometimes you will see in your instructions, it'll say leave your answer in terms of pi. And that'll be part of the directions. If your directions say leave your answer in terms of pi, that means you don't multiply by pi. That means you leave it right here and you would be done. Okay, that's when we don't expect people to have calculators, or we just don't want, we want our answers to be exact, because pi, when we use 3.14, that is just an estimation because pi goes on forever. So when we use 3.14 for pi, we're actually not using all of pi. So if we want our answer to be completely exact, we will leave our answer in terms of pi, and we don't actually multiply by pi, so we leave it here. Okay. Now, but what we could do real quick is just for this particular problem, we could multiply 16 by 3.14 and then get an official answer. Okay, so what I'm going to do though, just for the sake of time for this video, I am going to use my calculator to multiply 3.14 times 16, and I'm going to get 50.24. So the area of this particular circle is 15.24, and that is centimeters squared, because when we talk about area, we are talking about square centimeters now, because now we're talking about a two-dimensional space that we are taking up. Okay, let's look at another example in case that was just a little bit confusing, because there's a lot thrown at you there. A couple big things though, big things to point out. One, you have to use your radius. Okay, very, very important that we use the radius. Okay, and then the other thing is that we have to square our radius first before we multiply by pi. We always multiply by pi last when we're dealing with circumference, when we're dealing with area, almost anything that you have to deal with pi, with circles or spheres or area or anything. Whenever you see pi, normally we save that for the very last step when solving problems that involved pi. So let's look at another example though. A lot of writing on there. Okay, so now I want to find the area of this circle. Okay, it doesn't say leave your answer in terms of pi, so we're going to actually find the area. Okay, now one thing we have to notice though is I am given, this goes to the center, I am given the diameter of the circle. I am not given the radius, and our formula requires us to have the radius. So what I need to do is I need to figure out, well, what is my radius? So if the diameter is 6, the radius is always going to be half of that. So the radius is 3. So now I can take my 3 from my radius and plug it into my formula. So I know it's pi times 3 squared. Now the big thing is that we do our exponent first. 3 squared is just 3 times 3. Okay, that's super important that we recognize that. Okay, that's not 3 times 2. So 3 squared is not 6. It's 3 times 3, which is 9. So my area equals 9 times pi. Okay, and so then now I actually need to multiply 9 times 3.14. This one will be a little bit quicker multiplication, so I can show you guys that one off to the side here. Okay. So I get 36. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. Bring over my 1, 27, 28. And I have 2 numbers after the decimal, so bam. So my area is 28 and 26 hundredths. And again, that's centimeters squared because we were dealing with area. Now again, if it said leave your answer in terms of pi, I would have stopped here. All right, so again, big thing is don't use the diameter. Cut it in half, use your radius for the area. I know with circumference, we like to have the diameter. With the area, we like to have the radius. Okay? All right. Definitely try this one on your own. I mean, it's very similar. Try it on your own. But then notice how it says leave your answer in terms of pi. That means you do not need to actually multiply by 3.14. Leave your answer in terms of pi. So go ahead and pause it. Try it. Just make sure you use the formula properly. Okay, I hope you tried it. You should have. This should be you hitting play again after you pause it and trying the problem on your own. So this is a diameter. I need to use my radius. Okay, so my radius is half of the diameter. We'll say that's the middle. My radius is half the diameter, so therefore my radius is only 9 centimeters. So my area is pi times 9 squared. Now I can actually simplify that. So my area is 9 squared is 81 pi. I am done. There's nothing else for me to do, and that's centimeters squared. Because it says leave your answer in terms of pi. So that means we don't actually multiply by pi. We just leave pi there. We just simplify everything else. So there's nothing else that I need to do. Okay, if it did not say this, I would now multiply 3.14 by 81, but I don't have to do that because it says leave your answer in terms of pi. Okay, one more type of example I want to show you guys. So what's going to happen is you guys are going to be given a circumference formula, and you need to find the area of that specific circle. Okay, so let's look at here. Here I rewrote the area of the circumference of a circle formula right here. So circumference is equal to pi times your diameter, right? That's diameter. That's terrible handwriting, sorry, but that's diameter. So what we want to do is we want to figure out the area of a circle given this information. So they wrote out the circumference of the circle and left it in terms of pi. So what we figured out, what we need to look though, is because circumference is just pi times diameter, these values, these are the given diameters. Okay, so because this is the circumference equal to 6 times pi, that means 6 has to be my diameter because this is what we know from the circumference formula. So that means the diameter is 6. So that means I should easily be able to figure out what my radius is because it's half of that. So my radius is 3. Okay. Now that I'm given my radius, I found my radius is based on this particular formula, knowing that this was my diameter. Now I can use that to plug in to my area. Okay. So it's pi r squared, which is one that we've already done this one. Okay. 9 pi, and I believe it was 28 point something. Okay, let's go back and look. Yeah, 28.26, 28 and 26 hundredths. Okay, so we already did this problem, but the big thing is being able to identify what your radius is when looking at a circumference formula because this gives you the diameter. Go ahead and try this one over here on your own. See if you can recognize what the radius is, and then see if you can find the area from there. Okay, so I know my diameter is 8, which means my radius has to be 4. Okay, so if my radius is 4, then therefore we can plug it into our formula to get area equals pi times 4 squared, which is 16 pi. And then again, that's another one that we already solved. And that one I actually remember. It was 15 and 24 hundredths, I believe. And that would be, we'll say it's still centimeters if we weren't given the dimension, just because that's what we've been using this whole video. Okay? So the biggest thing, you guys, is that you have to use your radius. You cannot use diameter. So you always have to figure out what your radius is with given information. If you are given the circumference of a circle, you should be able to find your radius from there by figuring out what your diameter is and then dividing it by 2. Then all you gotta do is plug it back into your formula, square your radius, and then multiply by pi in the end. Okay? Oh, and I almost forgot my math joke. That was close, but here we go. So, what do you call people who are in favor of tractors? So what do you call people who are in favor of tractors? They are protractors. Protractors. Ha! All right. That's it, guys. That's all I got for you today. Good luck. If you have any questions, please let me know. Be sure to use your formula, though. Don't be lazy. Write out your steps with it, and then it'll make these problems very, very, very simple. Okay, good luck.